Hey guys, my name is Parker Lee, and today I'm going to show you how we create our choir videos here at Starkville First Time Methodist Church. If this helps you, give it a thumbs up because we're on YouTube, and share it or save it because it may help you. Now, this is the process that we do for all of our virtual choir videos that we've been doing since this COVID-19 pandemic started. We've done everything from one person to 55 people on screen at a time, and so it scales. This is how we do it. This is the process we've kind of come to. So let's jump into Premiere. All right, so we're here in Premiere Pro. I have everything already imported. I have our raw files. I have a folder. I have our first set of singers, our second set of singers, and our accompaniment. Now, everything hinges in our choir videos. Everything hinges on these 4 claps. When Peter Enfinger, our music director, records these accompaniments, he claps at the beginning. And what that does is when we replay that accompaniment over the speakers for our singers to sing to, I hear those 4 claps come over their microphones. So these 4 claps, you can find them in our singers. So for them, it's right here. They're really small, but you can see them. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so what I'll do is I'll drag this in to my sequence. And for you, the shortcut is Command K. For me, it's A, so you may see me just hit one key. That's why. So Command K, cut it, and draw it back. Now, what we're doing is we are trying to make it as close to those claps as possible. Real quick, I'm going to rename my sequence. This is Christ Beside Me. Put it in my sequence folder. Drag in our gentleman. Same thing, find the claps, they're right there. Command K to cut, and pull them over. So now that I have these guys in, how I do our microphones is always left to right, 1, 2. So this guy over here on the left, he is microphone 1. Trevor is microphone 2. And what this allows me to do is know who is who on these 4 tracks. Now you notice we have 4 tracks for 2 microphones. Tracks 3 and 4 are redundant. They are actually automatic in the camera. Our camera records 4 channels of audio, and they are volume set automatically. And so 1 and 2 are the ones that I can set. 3 and 4 are on auto. But what's helpful about that is if we clip, or if I just get it really wrong, really low, really high, I know I have 3 and 4. They're going to be pretty close to right if I need them. So they're a great safety. But I don't need them, so I'm going to hit Option, highlight 2 of them, and delete them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in my accompaniment track. Same thing, come as close to that front as I can. Command K to cut it off. Drag it in. All right, so now we're going to zoom in. And you'll notice that we are working in 30 frames per second. Let me turn that down so I don't blow out our eardrums. 30 frames per second is really great, but it's not quite perfect. And what I mean by that is you may notice that some of my claps, they're not perfect. You'll notice on this one, this is a great example. So if I come back 1 frame, I'm here. Another frame, I'm into it. So I can't get it right on the beginning of the clap. So I just have to be close. When we do larger videos of 30, 40, 50 people, I will often bring in our audio and everything into Adobe Audition, which is made for audio, because you can get really, really precise. In Audition, you're working with 40,000 hertz refresh rate versus 30. So instead of having 30 places in a second that I can cut in 44,000 places. So you can get right on the money in Audition. But again, it's 1/30th of a second. Most people are not that precise. It's probably okay. The great thing about Audition is it's just made for audio, and so it's a little bit easier to organize. But here's our audio. Let's take a listen to how it sounds just once they're lined up. Yeah, so the first thing you'll notice is that piano is really loud. So I'm going to leave it there, but let's just skip ahead to our where our vocals are. Yeah, so the piano's sitting on top. It's not letting those vocals come through. So one thing I've discovered it probably back in June. We've been doing these virtual choir videos since March of 2020 when this COVID-19 pandemic hit. And one of the things I discovered is this tab called Essential Sound. Now, if you don't see it, you can go to Window, Essential Sound. And what you can do is if you highlight audio tracks, you can tag them. So I'm going to tag it music and auto adjust the loudness. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to auto adjust each individual track to a certain loudness, measured in LUFS. Now, LUFS is a measurement of loudness, not necessarily energy. You can have dialogue that hits -3 all day on the dB, and it's not as loud as music hitting -9, just because of the amount of energy coming through in a music segment. So LUFS is a good measurement for that. That's what I default to, while also keeping an eye on my dB meters. If it's, hovering around -15, but it sounds just as loud as my dialogue later, then you're okay. So now let's take a listen.
Christ be beside me, Christ be before me.
Yeah, you'll notice those vocals are popping through a little bit more. So that's a good start. That's where we'll leave them for now. Let's go ahead and work on our visuals. So one thing to keep in mind, specifically for us, because we broadcast on TV on WOBV, is we have to keep safe margins in mind. Safe margins are, as far as I can tell, TV only. But what it is when you broadcast, all TVs may not see your entire picture. They may crop in and cut off. And so in Premiere, they have this great thing called safe margins. It's this little button right here. If you don't see it, you can go to this plus button editor, and it's that guy. You can drag it into your toolbox. And so toggle it on, and everything that we broadcast needs to be within these safe margins. If our lyrics are below this bottom line outside that box, they may get cut off. So we need to make sure that everything's within them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move these guys up one. I'm going to hold Option, click a video, and drag it down to duplicate it. Option, drag, duplicate. What this does is it gives us 4 tracks of video, because you'll notice we have 4 singers. This is how we do it for all of them. We record 2 singers per camera. And so we need to duplicate the video so everyone has their individual square. From here, I'll highlight them all, come into my Effects tab, and I have this Favorites folder, which I'll go over in another video. And one of the favorites is Crop. And so I'll drag a crop effect onto all 4. And now, here in a minute, I'll be able to crop them into their individual squares. Now, how do I get a square? Well, somewhere on your hard drive is a folder called Squares. And inside this folder are all of these PNG and Photoshop files. So within it, I have created everything from a 2 to a single, all the way up to 55. Well, today we need what's called quad box, so 4 quad with lyrics. So PNG, because that doesn't have a background, import it, and it's here. Drag it on top, spread it out, and now you can see in our box, in our program monitor, that we have a 4-way split. Now let's go ahead and drop a backdrop on there. You also have a folder of backdrops. Backdrops match whatever color the banners are that week. So this week we are green. So I'll drag my green backdrop. So now let's go ahead and crop in this first guy. Effect controls. There we go. I'm going to scale him up to 135 and drag him over somewhere around there. Now there is no hard and fast way to do this. What I've settled on is if they're filmed on the left-hand side of the choir room, they go on the left. That way they're looking into the frame. I don't want them kind of short-sighted, so that's what we do. We just have them long-sighted. Then let's get our next guy. Next guy is Trevor. So Trevor's on the right-hand side, so I need to pull him down and over. You know, something like that. So let's get my right-hand side, pull him in. And you may have to do, 0.5% of a crop. That's okay. You'll kind of figure it out as you go along. The key is to make sure they're all even, which usually isn't so bad because you have lines on all sides, but for me right now, it's a little more difficult because I don't have a bottom line. All right, so scale. And again, being conscious of the safe margin lines. Okay, that's okay. Get our last one. Scale her. And when I'm doing this for, 50 some odd people, it probably takes me about an hour. And I'm usually listening to music or a podcast or something, because it's pretty redundant. And you just kind of got to get through it. So if you feel like it's taking a while, don't worry. It always does. All right. So now I have everyone lined up in their square. And they're all within their safe margin, so we're good there. Next thing I want to do is I want to bring in my lyrics. So this is what I was talking about with I love how Adobe integrates with itself in the ecosystem. Because when I bring in these Photoshop files, and I'll show you this in a minute, if I need to change something, I can. So at this point, I just go through and listen to the song. Generally, I cross dissolve in. Just makes it a little bit nicer.
Beside me, Christ be before me, Christ be behind me, the King of my heart.
All right, so again, Command K, you can cut it. Grab your next slide, right click, replace frame with source monitor. What that does is it changes it here, so you don't have to drag it in and replace it, all that. You can just right click and do it. So this is what I was talking about with Adobe and the ecosystem. If I realize, oh, in the lyrics, this is actually a dash, what I can do is I can right click this particular slide, edit in Adobe Photoshop, and that'll bring up Photoshop, and I can go in and I can change that lyric to a dash. I can save it, and when I come back into Premiere, it changes it to a dash. Same thing, if I have a misspelling, if grammar is just not quite right, super easy to change. I don't have to re-import anything. I just have to save it. And so from here, I just go through and listen to the rest of the song and add in lyrics as I go. Okay, so now I've got all of my lyrics laid out. And we are good on that front. So now let's go in and kind of tweak our audio. Let's go ahead and take a listen and a watch real quick. Okay, so let's head over to the audio tab. When you first pop into the audio tab, you may not have this little gray box. That's okay. Up here in the left corner, you will have a little carrot looking guy. Just click it and it'll drop down. So from here, what we want to do first is I want to pan people out left and right, just to give them some space. So let me pop back real quick and check who's who. Piano is 1. Okay. So from here, we can play it. All right, so I know piano is 1, and I want to keep that straight up mono in the middle. So from here, there's really no hard and fast way to do it. I just try to keep them balanced in that I know these are my two guys. So I'm going to make them left and right, but I don't want to make one guy, really far left and the other guy just kind of right. I want to keep them balanced, but split. So let's take a listen now.
Christ be above me, he will never depart.
Another way of thinking is you may want to do it visually on screen, which would put all the guys to the left and the women to the right. That's up to you. I personally don't want to do that in this case because I want to keep it kind of balanced. One other thing I've realized through trial and error is that in any room when you're singing and even talking, there's an amount of reverb and echo in a room. And so when you watch a video, that doesn't come through naturally. So we have to add it in. And so what I'll do is in this effects, I'll add reverb, studio reverb. And I've fallen in love with presets. I normally go with medium. It's kind of a Goldilocks situation. Too hot, too cold, just right. But in this case, I actually want to go with small. But I'll let you listen to large real quick. And that's just too much for me. Medium is also too much in this case. So I'm going to go with small. And one of the things that I've found myself doing, especially with connection, is actually duplicating layers. Meaning I'll have one layer of a vocal with reverb on it, generally the medium one, and that gives it that space of a room. But I'll have the second layer not have any reverb on it at all, just to help it cut through and give it that crispness. So you get best of both worlds with there. But you just kind of have to watch it. Don't go crazy. Reverb is one of those things that you can go really crazy with really fast. So just be careful on that front. There are some parts of this song that get really loud. And there are other parts that are really quiet. So one of the things that I generally do is add some compression. And I go easy on compression. I try not to go crazy. One thing, there's not a lot of the human voice below 137 hertz that you just have to have. So I cut that out. I don't need anything below there. Is usually just rumbles and you don't need it. I also usually cut most of the highs out. One thing I have noticed personally for myself is I have hearing range loss. I cannot hear above like 10,500 hertz. The human range when you're a baby is 20 to 20,000. As you grow older, you lose some of that hearing. And for whatever reason, I've lost more high end younger for whatever reason. So you'll notice if you look at our equalizer here, it's exponential. So, it sounds like I lost half my hearing. Well, I really haven't. I've lost, this much. I still have all of this. So all that to say, if you can't hear it, I usually cut it out. So for me, a lot of my stuff doesn't have a lot of high end because I can't hear it. And so I can't monitor it. So I cut that out. Now you'll notice that was just way up here. Yeah, and see here you can actually visually see what I was talking about. There's this stuff, which I don't need any of that because it's below 80 hertz, so there's no way that's Trevor's voice. Like, Trevor has a low voice, but it's not that low. This is most of you people, and this is the high stuff here. This is the really high stuff that we're getting a little bit of it, but not a lot. And so I'm actually going to turn this gain down -4 probably because it's just really loud. Yeah, that sounds nice. And then one thing I want to do is I want to make sure we don't get too loud. So I'll add some dynamic processing. Again, I love the presets. Broadcast limiter is great, and I'll actually usually raise it up. My goal is just to not peak above -6. And you can see how much it's reducing over here. And the goal is not to reduce too much, but just to kind of keep it. See, that was a lot. So I'm actually going to probably raise it. Yeah, that's probably better. Just enough to keep it from peaking and going all over the place. Yeah, so that's probably good. From here, I'll head back to my first window, and we're pretty much good. The only thing I would add would be that opening lower third, but I don't have one of those super handy, so we're not going to do that. But that usually goes here in this first part. But yeah, so that is how we edit our choir videos. If this helped you out, hit like. You can save it because we're on YouTube. Share it with some people. That's how we created all of our virtual choirs. And like I said at the beginning, this is the basic premise, and from here it just scales. Like I said, we've done 55 people. And so at 55 squares, everyone just gets really kind of small. But it's the same process. You crop them in, pan them out, work with levels, and that's pretty much it. So if this helped you, like I said, hit like, share it, save it, do whatever you need, and I hope it blesses you. So my name's been Parker Lee, and I hope this helped.